Well, apparently I should just make a video on Sunfury tomorrow so we can have it come out the next day, because that's kind of what keeps happening with my Frostfire and Spellslinger videos. So let's look at Spellslinger and talk about it. It's a very passive tree. Personally, I think this tree's gonna live or die by its visuals. There's a lot of things that could be, if it has cool visuals, would be really satisfying. If they are, substandard visuals, it's gonna feel very unimpactful. But let's talk about it. So right off the bat, you essentially have an ice skull for Frost, like a second ice skull that they call a Splinter, where when you consume Wear's Chill, you're going to just fire a Splinter that deals damage. When you consume Nether Precision, you're going to fire a Splinter that deals damage. And they just are a dot effect for 16 seconds that stacks. It's kind of like a little ignite stacking thing, except it has actual stacks, I imagine, because counting comes in later. And if you didn't read over here, this is important, right? Their splinters are themed based on your active specialization. So Arcane splinters are Arcane themed. Frost splinters are Frost themed. So yeah. Right off the bat though, there's a major problem with this, right? And the fact that Arcane only consumes Nether Precision in like single target and light cleave, where Frost consumes Wear's Chill at all target counts. So that's a bit rough. Also, I wonder if this is single target only, because normally our AoE spells don't consume Wear's Chill, but I say normally because there's exceptions to that rule, and the big exception is Ice Nova. Ice Nova consumes Wear's Chill, so let's say you change your Cone of Cold combo to do Comet Storm, Cone of Cold, Comet Storm, Orb, Ice Nova. You just consumed Wear's Chill on however many targets you hit your Cone of Cold with. Are you just firing out like 12 splinters in AoE? Because that would be a little ridiculous, right? So we'll see. That would be interesting. But I think it's just going to be one per Winter's Chill total, basically. So this is a big problem for Arcane. The easiest way to fix this is just have it be whenever you consume or you have Nether Precision, also work on Arcane Barrage for Arcane, and then that's pretty fine for AoE. Normally that would be an issue because Arcane also doesn't really generate clear casting AoE, but we're going to see that's not true as we go deeper into the tree. So, all right, let's go down the left first. So this is just casting your main CD, gives you 8 splinters, and then during it, whenever you conjure a splinter, you have a 100% chance to conjure additional splinter. I would I would say you make Arcane generate like 2 more splinters or something. Or actually, they do have a little bit of a damage, just wording difference here, where it says moderate Arcane school damage versus light Frost school damage. So it might already be accounting for the fact that Frost is a lot more likely to generate more splinters than Arcane, and this is particularly true right here, right, where Frost has a way longer CD. Not only do they have a longer CD, they also have more haste during their CD, right? So you're just generating like way more splinters than Arcane would here, so we'll see how that works out. Then we have our utility thing where you have 40% increase movement speed during alter time, and then displacement has a longer duration, longer range, and leave behind some mirrored image. I would say these are both kind of useless, but slippery slinging is definitely more useful. This might be good for PvP. Like, look again, seems like it's probably good for PvP, but we don't ever really use displacement as mage. The only time we have used it is Razageth, right? Or we are required to use it. There's good times to use it elsewhere. Like, I think some people have used it on Nimue. I've used it on Nimue a couple times, just because you need to be in melee, you need to be out, right? Bellarellos, mechanics, whatever. But yeah, it's not worth taking really most times. So slippery slinging can be nice because a lot of times, like, you might want to alter, if you're not altering a damage mechanic, you might be altering a movement mechanic. Like, for instance, using the Nimue example, whenever I get to the center ad, I like to alter, and then just, I can blink or dodge the frontals that he sends out pretty easily, and then go back to the alter place. So this could be pretty nice. You could also just use it for the 40% movement speed and then cancel it, near the end, so you just get the 40% movement speed for free. That'd be pretty cool. Shifting shards, shifting power files, a barrage of 8 splinters at random enemies within 4 yards over its duration. I like this. I think a lot of people dislike shifting power for various reasons. This definitely makes it kind of required that you use it more on CD, where it's a lot more flexible use right now. The issue is right now, it kind of feels bad to press shifting power a lot of times. Like, there's a lot of times as Frost especially where I'm like, I don't really want to press shifting power right now. I want to keep doing my rotation. Especially in AoE, it's very disruptive because you always have procs in AoE. It's always like I have to press Blizzard, I have to press Orb, I have Fingers Frost and overcap on, right? There's always something to press in AoE. So this gives it a lot more of an identity because of the Capstone, which I guess we'll read now. So the Capstone is when you have 8 or more embedded splinters, so just splinters that are on any target, right? Because remember they stack right here. You automatically cast Splinter Storm at the target, and that's just going to recall all the splinters to you, deal all the remaining periodic damage instantly, and then do a massive dealing damage to your. This is single target, by the way, so this is funnel. Dealing damage to your target for each splinter and Splinter Storm, and then you get clear casting for Arcane, or if you're Frost, it applies Winter's Chill to your main target. So I think there's 2 big things to mention here. One, 8 or more splinters is not a lot of splinters. Literally, shifting power gives you 8 splinters. All right, shifting power just causes this. So this means shifting power will now give you Winter's Chill or clear casting. Winter's Chill's a lot stronger than that. And then we got a lot of other things that are going to generate splinters. But yeah, that's a lot of splinters. Okay, or not a lot of splinters. You're going to be getting this effect very often. You're going to have a super high Winter's Chill uptime on target, especially because Winter's Chill is not a 1-stack debuff. Okay, Winter's Chill is a 2-stack debuff. All right, so you will just it'll be like you flurry essentially. Whenever your Splinter Storm happens, you'll have 2 Winter's Chill on the target, unless they change the coding. Like, for instance, some of you might be like, "Oh, that's weird. Why does my Cone of Cold with Coldest Snap then only apply 1 Winter's Chill?" That's because it's bugged. It used to apply 2. They changed the targets, and now it's bugged to only apply 1. In that it has a really weird interaction on top of it. But yeah, so you should expect this, unless they bug it again, to apply 2 Winter's Chill. That's a lot of Winter's Chill uptime. We already have like 40% Winter's Chill uptime. If you sim something, which I will sim it right now for you. I don't know what's in my... Okay. Yeah. But yeah, so really high Winter's Chill uptime. Anyway, let's get back up down to the middle. Arcane, while targets under the effects of Nether Tempest, 20% of the direct damage dealt by splinters also dealt to nearby enemies, damage reduced beyond 5 targets. Direct damage from Arcane splinters resets the duration of Nether Tempest, while targets under the effects of Winter's Chill, 20% of the direct damage is dealt to nearby enemies, deals reduced damage by 5 targets. So, this is the first time we see a talent that's heavily weighted towards Arcane, in that this means Nether's Tempest is likely, or is very easily able to have 100% uptime. That's not true for Frost. So for Frost, in this case, a lot less of your Splinter damage is going to be, AoE damage. This does mean that Flurry might actually be heavily prioritized in your rotation. This is going to get a little bit complicated though, right? Because it's just based on the effects of Winter's Chill. So you would only want to Flurry if you weren't about to Splinter Storm, but at the same time, in order to get Splinter Storm, you need to Flurry. So yeah. Well, that's not true, actually. There's a bunch of other things. But yeah, so I think this is going to get a little complicated for Frost on whether or not you want to Flurry. When you want to Flurry already in Plus is a little bit, and then AoE is kind of changing per patch. So I think that might be kind of an annoying thing to happen. But all right, so we look at this enemy. We have a 48% uptime on Winter's Chill. This is going to increase this quite a lot. So yeah, that might be, it's really gonna like just drop Frostbolt from the rotation, or it might mean you have to do like really weird things like, oh, you definitely need to track splinters, but my Winter's Chill is procced, I have to finish casting this Frostbolt where I would have flurried, and I have to Ice Lance or something, and then go into a flurry or whatever. So I think this is gonna be very strange for Frost, just because of how impactful Winter's Chill is to your rotation. But now we have their defensive talent, which is Prismatic Barrier or Ice Barrier, can absorb up to 50% damage, more damage based on your missing health, max effectiveness when under 50% health, and then your Mirror Image summons 1 extra clone. Mirror Image now deals 5% or reduces all damage taken by an initial 5%. So, not really a fan of this choice node because Barrier is a very proactive button. You want to press barrier before you take damage. So ideally, yeah, you're barriering and then never getting to 50% health. So more of the time you're barriering at high health than you are at low health, right? Because if you're barriering at low health, you kind of fucked up, generally speaking. Unless there's like a lot of heavy rot damage and your healers are struggling. So I would prefer if this was like the opposite, where it barriers more if you're at higher health versus less, and then it doesn't have the effect. It's just normal at lower health. But yeah, I think either way it's going to be concerning, but you get a lot more value out of it if your barrier was stronger at higher health. So not really a huge fan of it requiring low health, given it's a proactive defensive. And then the extra clone, doesn't really matter. Normally your mirror images don't actually go away. Like very few things, especially in raiding, are direct damage. So this would only like be very useful if you have aggro already, essentially, or in like solo play perhaps. And the additional 5% damage reduction is, that's okay. That's fine. We'll see how that works out, I guess. Spellfrost teachings, I'm not a fan of this. For Arcane, I think it's kind of nice, where dealing direct damage has a 5% chance to summon Arcane Echo that deals damage to all nearby enemies, increases damage to enemies taken from you by 6%, and dealing damage by Splinter has a 5% chance to summon Oxy Comet that deals damage to all enemies, and increases damage to enemies taken from you by 6% for 6 seconds. So, for Frost, I'm not a fan of this for 2 reasons, and that one, this literally already exists. This is me looking at how much damage I assume it's going to do. Yeah, this already exists, right? This is literally just Glacial Assault. Okay, I thought that was fire or frost. It's literally just Glacial Assault, 6% damage for 6 seconds, right? Not really a big fan of that. Because now we have 2 random procs that are 6% damage for 6 seconds, right? That's a little too much. I mean, 1 is already a little too much. If you're wondering, this is the uptime on our current 6% damage one. Numbing Blast is the uptime on Glacial Assault. So, yeah. So, personally, not a fan for this. Also, this can miss, right? For Frost, it's a Comet. It can miss. Arcane, though, Arcane Echo, that can't miss, because that's just radiating from your target. So, might be a little bit nicer for Arcane, but I don't think it missing is really a big deal for Frost that often. But still, I just this is very, very random, so I'm not a fan of that. Yeah, it's a little too random. But, all right, now we get into the more AoE stuff, right? So on the right side, we got the first 8 enemies damaged by Arcane Orb, conjure a Splinter that fires the damaged target, increased Arcane Orb damage, and the same thing for Frozen Orb. This is rather vague, because it means per orb. Then obviously this is disgusting for Frost, because you're sending out an insane amount of orbs in AoE and mass AoE. So you're going to be literally shooting splinters out of your ass. But for Arcane, the other option is that it's based on the enemy, right? So an enemy can only be hit for a certain amount, for a certain period of time, maybe the entirety of their life, which would be pretty bad for raid, or for like 30 seconds, essentially, they can only be hit 8 times by this ability and conjure a Splinter in that time. I think that makes sense to me with an ICD more than it being per orb. Because one, obviously Arcane Orb can't hit an enemy 8 times, you can only hit it once. So it makes more sense for it to have an ICD and just you can hit them with 8 Arcane Orbs in that time and generate Splinter for each of them. But then the other thing is, this is an enemy. It's also, I doubt this is AoE, because again, that's just way too many Splinters, so it has to be a singular enemy. So this might just be like the first enemy hit, but they also don't say that. So this could be a very strange talent, and that it might make you send out infinite Splinters, or it's just going to be a nice consistent way to generate Splinters. I think it would be better if it's not infinite Splinters, because if it is infinite Splinters, then all the rest of this is going to be weaker by comparison. Compared to, hey, I just Arcane Orbed on 20 targets, I just generated 20 Splinters. Wow. And then when you're generating 1 Splinter by comparison, that's not going to be very valuable, right? Compared to a 20 Splinter generation. So, yeah, I'm kind of hoping this is like maybe just 1 per cast or something, I guess. I don't know. But, and then that's more skewed towards Arcane Orb than Frozen Orb, because you Arcane Orb a lot more, actively Arcane Orb a lot more, because of Orb Barrage and everything. Frozen Orb, you do a little bit less unless you're on really high target counts. So, Not really sure. We'll have to see how this one works out. But yeah, I think that's fine. It's just, that's strange. 8 is also a really weird number to choose. We'll see. Okay. Then we have this, where whenever a splinter is removed or recalled, it explodes, dealing damage to nearby enemies, deals reduced damage around 5 targets, and then each time you conjure a splinter, increase the damage of your supernova. This is 540%, by the way. Each time you conjure a splinter, increase the damage of your ice nova, next ice nova by 6%. So you see the fact that it stacks 30 times definitely shows you that we're going to be generating a lot of splinters, right? If you're wondering, this makes supernova do, is it this? Yeah, supernova do, this is just my numbers, so this is like just for reference, where normally for me it would do like 8,274 damage. Now it would do 52,953. This is doubled to your primary target for supernova, so it would do 104,000. Ice nova would do 75,000 to all targets. Right, so it's kind of like a bit of an even split. Arcane, a bit more funnel things. I don't think you're ever going to play this though. Like, this is the single target option, really. You just play this in single target if you were to play this. But volatile magic, this is, aside from controlled instincts, this is the only way to make your splinters do AoE damage when they're removed or recalled. And when they say removed or recalled, that's Splinter Storm, right? So if I shifting power puts 8 splinters on all the targets, it's then going to immediately recall them. The recall is going to do all the periodic damage directly to the enemies, and then it's also going to do a burst of AoE damage. So I think volatile magic is like, seems far, far better for any actual AoE situation, but it really depends how much damage it's doing, because unearned proficiency doesn't seem like it's that bad, really. I would probably want maybe a little bit more of a damage boost to Ice Nova, and maybe they should just buff Supernova baseline, because having to buff an ability by 540% is kind of wild, but yeah. Anyway, and then we have a boring, just 2% increased crit strike chance, 5% increased crit strike damage, which is fine. Maybe they'll change this later or not, but they put a lot of things in the rest of the tree that shows me they put some thought into this, so I'm fine with this. I think this talent tree, it's obviously very passive in terms of, normally the effect on your rotation is mainly going to be changing, like when you press shifting power, when you press flurry. For Arcane, I don't really see how this is going to change your rotation, really. The main thing is, like, maybe you want a shifting, I don't know, because ideally you would send a bunch of splinters before your burst, but Arcane's not going to shifting power before its burst, even though Frost already shifting powers during its burst, so, like, yeah. I think this is mainly going to be like, oh, delay shifting power less. You're definitely not going to shifting power during your CDs as Arcane, I'd say. That just depends, maybe, but we'll see. But yeah, I think Frost is going to like majorly change how you use Flurry, which could be really annoying because your Flurry usage will probably be quite different from how you use it as a Frostfire mage. Personally, I think this is exciting, though you do have to keep track of Splinter Storm. I think this is actually going to be a much harder tree in terms of getting used to a new playstyle than Frostfire will be. Even though maybe this looks like, people were complaining about Frostfire. They were like, oh, this has stacks or something. You don't have to keep track of Frostfire stacks. You do have to keep track of Splinter Storm, though. Because this is, it applying Wearer's Chill is ridiculously impactful to your rotation. So, yeah. And also, I mean, I think this is interesting. Like for Frost, you just getting clear casting, or not clear casting, Wearer's Chill from shifting power, that's interesting. I think that's interesting. It means you will proc much a lot. I think there's a lot more proc muching here. And this also has a lot less, like I'm looking at this and there's nothing that's like popping out to me as like, oh, this makes me want to take X talent, really, right? Where I'm looking at Frostfire and I'm like, I think I'd like to play Fractured Frost or something. But like for Arcane, what talent would I want to take? You'd say one that gives me more consistent clear casting for more splinters from another precision, but we already generate a lot of clear casting, so I don't feel like that's... Cascading power is technically better right now in single target than like our current playstyle, so this just probably would further cement that in the lead. And maybe, you also throw in a concentration in actual single target, maybe this makes it a little bit better. But you have a lot of clear casting anyway. So, and the big thing is the Splinter really going to be better or good enough to make up for the fact that Arcane Missiles is so bad compared to Arcane Blast, right? But that's just balancing, so we'll see how that works. I will say, the really good thing this does for Arcane is that Splinter Storm giving you clear casting gives you a very consistent way to generate clear casting in AoE that's not really present otherwise. Because right now the biggest struggle with Arcane's 4-piece is that it's massive in single target, and it should be really good in AoE, right? It looks like an AoE tier set, but it just Arcane doesn't generate clear casting enough in AoE, so this would kind of solve that problem. I think people really like the visual of the current Arcane 4-piece, so it'd be nice if it makes it into the talent tree somehow. Because I think Arcane definitely still has the most problems with its talent tree. Like, for instance, taking Supernova is very, very awkward in Arcane's talent tree. You would have to drop... like, improved clear casting, which doesn't really make sense now. And the fact, again, they really need Nether Precision to consume Arcane Blast, or like Arcane Barrage to consume Nether Precision. Otherwise, this does not work at all for Arcane, because they just don't have a consistent way to conjure Splinter in AoE, right? Even then, you ignore a lot of your clear casting AoE when you're just spam casting barrages from Orb Barrage. So there needs to be like some barrage component ideally. I mean, we have the Arcane Orb component, right? But Frost also has that in addition to the Consuming Winter's Chill component. You may say like, oh, Frost doesn't really consume Winter's Chill too much in AoE, and I think that's true, but that's something they can easily change. One of the downsides though to this is our current tier set generates most of our brain freezes. Like, you can go here, you can see like we generate 37.6 brain freezes in this one target sim, and Glacial Spike was 16 of them, right? So we're going to lose a lot of brain freeze generation, especially in AoE where we're not frostbolting. So in that case, this might be, also pretty not super impactful for Frost in AoE. But they have been making a lot of like brain freeze generating things in AoE, and we'll have to see, I guess, how this works. But yeah, so I do think Controlled Instincts is, I don't know, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. This thing will live or die by one. Splinter Storm has to look cool as hell. All right, this just has to look super cool. Because if it does, that's great. If it doesn't, that's really bad. Like the recalling of the Splinter has to look cool. Ideally, Volatile Magic would have like a little bit of splash thing going on there. If you haven't seen what the Ray Frost talent looks like, I think that would be like a fine visual for Splinters for Frost. This one's Splintering Ray. People didn't really like this the way this looked, but I thought it was fine. Let's see. So you'll see it does like a little tiny little explosion of frost stuff around the target. That's kind of cool. So something like that for Volatile Magic would also make Arcane look ridiculous, because I mean, you've already seen Arcane. Let's get Arcane Echoes proccing, Nether Tempest proccing. To also have this happen at the same time would be a little bit wild. So anyway, in general, I like this tree. Just for the love of God, make them cool visuals and make it look different than an Icicle, please. I think the Arcane one will definitely look pretty cool, because Arcane Splinter sounds cool, but Frost Splinters, that sounds like a smaller Icicle, and I need better visuals for Frost. I'm dying over here, so yeah. Alright, let me know what you think in the comment section, and I'll do a Sunfury video sometime next week, probably, and then maybe it'll come out again. But yeah, have a good day.